Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I have something extraordinary to share with you. An intense, life-altering, near-death experience from a man named Bill Lawn, a firefighter, a surfer, a man of service, and above all, someone who died and came back with a story that could shift the way we think about life, death, and everything in between. Let me walk you into what happened. I'll pause throughout to explain what I believe is happening, based on what we know from science, consciousness studies, and metaphysics. Because honestly, this is not just a story. It's a deep insight into what we all might go through someday. So here we go. Here's how Bill tells it. We came up to this apartment. The neighbor told us she hadn't seen the woman in a while, said she might still be inside, and it didn't feel right. Her car was still in the driveway. Newspapers were piling up outside the door. So we forced our way in. She was in the back bedroom. Sick. Real sick. She could barely speak. I slid across the bed to put an oxygen mask on her, and as I did, she looked at me and let out this breath, this hot, dense breath, and she just whispered, "Oh, thank God." She was so relieved to see us, and then she exhaled again, and that breath, it hit me right in the face. It filled my lungs. Now pause for a second here. To my audience, I want you to think about this. The air this woman expelled wasn't just breath. It carried viral particles. Maybe a flu, maybe something even more dangerous. But what Bill didn't know was that this moment, this act of compassion, would change his life forever. We now understand, through immunology and respiratory science, that viruses can spread with stunning efficiency in tight, unventilated rooms. One deep breath is enough. And that's all it took for Bill. Back to his words. Within 12 hours, I was down. I knew I was sick. I could feel it in my bones. Heart rate skyrocketing, temperature rising, my body was failing. Now keep in mind, I was in peak shape, Iron Man shape. I never quit. But this time, something inside me whispered, call for help. And that right there, I want to pause and point out something psychological. This intuitive voice many people hear when on the brink, it's been studied. In high-stress trauma or NDEs, the pineal gland and deep limbic systems are flooded with endorphins and DMT-like compounds, creating what feels like divine communication. Let's go on. So I called 911. Paramedics rushed me in. They gave me a couple liters of fluids, tried to stabilize me. The nurse came in and said, "You arrived by ambulance. You're not going anywhere. Doctor hasn't seen you yet." They gave me this drug, something synthetic like morphine. And that was the last straw for my system. Everything shut down. It was a total collapse. And here, audience, I want to highlight what Bill's describing matches medically documented toxic shock or a drug-induced hypotensive crisis, where blood pressure drops so low it becomes undetectable. He said they couldn't even read his vitals. At this point, Bill left his body. And what he experienced next was beyond what science can fully explain. But I'll do my best to translate as we go. Let's get back to his words. Suddenly, I was outside my body. Gone. I found myself soaring through a space filled with stars. Not like looking up at the night sky. No, I was in it. Among them. It was the most exhilarating feeling, like someone poured golden honey all over my brain. It flowed down through every cell in my body, a wave of joy, of acceptance, of total peace. Now let me pause and explain. Neurologically, this is known as the ecstatic response. The brain in its final moments often releases a cascade of serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins, resulting in profound euphoria. But even that doesn't quite explain what Bill is about to describe next. I felt free, like I'd escaped some dark, cramped closet and become this vast, radiant energy being. I wasn't Bill anymore. Not the firefighter, not the human with worries and preferences. I was home. Did you catch that? Home. That word comes up in nearly every NDE I've researched. People don't say they went to heaven, they say they went home. It's psychological, it's cellular, it's something primal in our souls that recognizes a higher plane. Back to Bill. Then I noticed something else, knowledge. Everywhere. It wasn't taught to me. It was like, it was already there. You just think a thought, any question, and the answer would appear. Pages and pages of it, faster than light. It was like the whole script of humanity was written across the stars. Time didn't exist there. This right here, folks, is what quantum physicists like David Bohm and consciousness researchers like Dr. Eben Alexander have hinted at, that knowledge, memory, and identity may be part of a non-local consciousness field. something bigger than the brain. Bill continues. Then I asked myself, how did I ever think I was just Bill? All that identity, the preferences, the ego, the fear, it dropped off. I realized we're all just actors in this grand play. The whole purpose? To wake up, to realize who we really are. Can you feel that? This is the shift, the peeling back of the illusion. He's talking about the very nature of being. Then suddenly I landed, and in front of me were 3 small hooded figures. They were delighted to see me. I felt safe with them. They asked questions, rapid fire. What did you see? What did you learn? I didn't know how to answer. I was still in awe. One of them laughed and said, he doesn't remember us. And they all laughed. Not mocking, just joy. Like old friends reunited after a wild journey. Let me stop here for just a second. These hooded beings, common in NDEs. Some describe them as soul guides, others as memory keepers, even archetypes from Jungian psychology, representing the subconscious helping us reintegrate. Perfect. Let's keep going. Now we're entering the part of Bill's experience that, in my opinion, might just be the most emotionally charged and deeply transformative. Remember, up to this point, Bill had already left his physical body, traveled through a star-filled dimension, and reunited with what appeared to be ancient guides or soul companions. And now, Bill meets the being of light. So I'm going to let him speak first, and then I'll break it down with you, my audience. Because what happens next, it's beautiful, it's powerful, and it's backed by both mystical tradition and real psychological resonance. Here's Bill. This other guy appeared. He wasn't small like the others. He was tall, made of light, not blinding, but swirling, pulsing energy. He looked like a living whirlpool, like if a tornado could smile. Parts of him would stretch forward and then catch up, like his being was in multiple places at once. He glided up to me, slow and smooth, and even before he reached me, I felt him, this huge, overwhelming, pure love, not sentimental, not emotional. This was structural, foundational. As he got closer, my throat closed up. My chest swelled so wide I thought I'd collapse. I couldn't hold it in. I dropped to my knees, and I just wept. Not from sadness, from love. This love, it broke me open. Pause. Let me talk to you all directly for a second. This is universal. Almost every near-death experience ever recorded includes this moment. The being of light. A presence made of compassion and truth that sees you fully. Neuroscience doesn't quite have language for this, but some believe it's the brain's attempt to interface with non-dual consciousness. Others say it's what ancient spiritual systems have called God, Source, or the Oversoul. And the tears? That's real too. Neuropsychologists call this emotional flooding. The limbic system can't handle the intensity of unconditional acceptance. It overwhelms the ego. Now back to Bill. I was in the presence of something that humans have called angels, guides, helpers. This wasn't myth, it was real, and I knew I was known. I looked at him and asked, what now? Is it time for my life review? I felt this fire captain part of me kick in. Like, okay, let's follow the procedure, let's do it. And the being? He laughed. It wasn't mocking, it was joy again. He said, sure, let's do that. Now friends, this life review concept, it's not Judgment Day like you've heard in religion. It's different. Let me explain. When people recount NDE life reviews, they don't talk about being judged. They talk about feeling everything they caused, like stepping into the shoes of others, reliving moments as them. It's like consciousness becomes multi-dimensional. You become every impact you ever had. Back to Bill. But this wasn't what I expected. It wasn't a courtroom. It was show and tell. I saw different dimensions of life, why things happened. I could see behind the curtain, all the invisible threads connecting each event. There weren't huge regrets, maybe a job I didn't take, a love I didn't pursue. But the being just smiled, like a parent lifting a toddler. And he said, okay, that's enough. Time to go back. And I was like, go back? You've got to be kidding me. Right here? Audience. This is where the resistance kicks in. Nearly everyone who has these experiences doesn't want to return. And that's important, because if the brain were just hallucinating, if this were a dying delusion, don't you think people would try to cling to life? But what we see instead is the opposite. People beg to stay in that realm. Why? Because it feels more real than here. Let's continue with Bill. I said, no way. I don't want to go back. My wife, my parents, they'll be sad. But they're strong. They'll heal. There's no reason to go back. But the being said, "You have things to do and they're important." Then everything started to dissolve. The room came apart. He smiled one last time, and then he vanished. And I started falling. I fell out of that world and landed into darkness, thick, heavy, dull, and suddenly I was back in my body. Let me pause to explain something. That falling sensation, neurologists believe it may be the mind's way of sinking back into localized consciousness. But spiritually, many describe it as a descent from higher vibration back into the dense, limited 3D world. And it's hard. Let's go on. There was a blood pressure cuff on my arm, and each time it squeezed, I became more conscious. I could see the numbers rising. Eventually, it hit 70/40. I was strong enough to stay awake. A nurse walked by, saw my face, and froze. She gasped, "You're awake?" And I just said, "Yes, I am." But then I looked her dead in the eye and asked, "Why am I back here? I was home. I was with my people. Why am I back in this broken, slow, heavy world?" And that, my friends, is the question at the heart of every NDE. Not what was that, but why am I here? Awesome. Let's keep going. Because now we're entering the part of Bill's journey that might hit the hardest for many of you watching. This is what happens after an NDE. It's not all light and peace once you return. In fact, for many experiencers, coming back is the hardest part of all. Your soul has seen what lies beyond, and now you're back in a human body with bills, noise, gravity, and confusion. Let's dive back into Bill's words. I remember lying there, looking up at the ceiling tiles in the hospital, feeling heavy, sad, not clinically depressed, just gutted. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want this body. I didn't want gravity. I didn't want noise or bright lights. I had just touched eternity. I had just floated in the frequency of pure love. And now I was wrapped back in flesh. I knew that I wasn't just Bill anymore. I was something more. I had become something more. And I couldn't unknow that. Now to my audience, this is a textbook example of what's called reintegration distress. Psychologists who study NDEs describe it as a profound struggle to readapt to physical reality after transcending it. There's grief, and it's not for a lost person. It's grief for the realm they left behind. Let's keep going. When I finally went back to work, everyone wanted to know what happened. Word had gotten around the station. Firefighters are a tight family. They'd heard something wild had gone down. They'd pull me aside. "Hey man, tell us what happened in there." So I told them, all of it. I told them about the stars, the beings, the love, the life review, the return. And for about 2 weeks, I felt like I was sharing a secret from the other side, passing it around like a flame. But then, word got to the higher-ups. One of the guys from the office came to me and said, "Hey, they're starting to talk about you in the chief's office. You might want to cool it." And that's when I shut it down. I zipped it, locked it away for 15 years. I said nothing. Let's stop here, because this is heartbreaking. Bill's experience, one that could inspire, transform, or awaken people, was silenced. And why? Because we still live in a world where spiritual experience is taboo, especially in fields like medicine, firefighting, military, law enforcement, places that prize logic, toughness, and control. But the irony is, these are the exact places where these experiences are most often reported. Let's go back to Bill. Even though I never talked about it, I never forgot. It cooked inside me, like a pot slowly boiling. And then after I retired, it came roaring back. All of it. The memory, the messages, the mission. I began hearing whispers, not literal voices, but soul nudges. You know what I mean? That inner direction that just won't leave you alone. I was being told, by whatever's on the other side, to go to Central America, to find shamans, to sit with elders, to return to ancient wisdom, and they were right. I needed to get back to the stillness. Now let me explain. What Bill's describing is often called post-NDE awakening. It's a phase where experiencers go on pilgrimages, physically or spiritually, to integrate what they've learned. Science calls it neuroplastic reframing, but many call it soul alignment. Bill continues, "I traveled without my phone, no Wi-Fi, no routers, no social media, just jungle, just stars, just sacred silence. And in that silence, you know what happens? Your soul speaks. The ancient ones, the Mayans, the Toltecs, the shamans, they knew this. They knew this world was a veil. And when you raise your vibration, the veil begins to thin. You don't need to die to see it. You just need to get still. Really still." Let's pause this right here. This is quantum spiritual truth. When Bill talks about raising your vibration, he's echoing the language of both string theory and mysticism. Everything is energy. Everything is frequency. And when your frequency is high, through love, stillness, or service, perception begins to shift. Bill goes on, "This place, it's a school. That's what I came back knowing. Earth is an intense school for the soul. It's not always easy. In fact, it's designed to be hard. We chose to be here. We signed up for the joy, the beauty, the surfing, the sunsets, and we also signed up for the tsunamis. Every one of us. We get 3 or 4 of those soul-quaking tsunamis in our lifetime, and each one is an opportunity to grow. In love." Let me stop here. He's not saying pain is good, he's saying pain is transformational. That from the biological stress response, to emotional release, to deep soul evolution, all of it is the furnace where higher versions of ourselves are forged. Back to Bill. We're being trained, groomed even. For what? To become creators, to become gods, little g, to go out into the universe and help shape what comes next. But first, we have to master this place, the school of hard knocks. We have to learn love in all its forms. When you choose kindness over ego, love over fear, patience over anger, every time you raise your frequency. That's the test. That's the mission. He closes with something that still gives me chills. There are thousands of souls watching us, our ancestors, our pets, our guides. They're not judging, they're cheering. They just want us to get it, to wake up, to grow. And when we finally do, when we live selflessly, when we help others, when we become the higher version of ourselves, then we get to leave. Then we move on. Then we return to the stars. Woo, let that settle for a second. To everyone watching, that was Bill's journey, his near-death experience, his homecoming, his return, and his purpose. Whether you believe every word or not, this story reveals something deeply human, something ancient, and maybe something eternal. If this spoke to you, let me know in the comments. And if you're ready for more stories like this, subscribe, because we're just getting started. Thank you.